Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is supported by Smithy Ironware. By now, if you've listened to this show, then you know how my relationship with this cast iron company has blossomed through the years. From first interviewing founder Isaac Morton to now developing recipe content for their website. My relationship cooking with cast iron in my home kitchen has grown too. Since I've been using my 12-inch Smithy skillet for a couple of years now, it seems the more I use it, the more I want to use it. And it's never hard to clean because I have one of their signature chainmail scrubbers that I can keep by the sink, pop in the dishwasher, and reuse. It's sustainable, something you know I love, and I'll also put that scrubber to work on my glass baking dishes too. As a special gift for Southern Fork listeners, Smithy's giving away a scrubber with every purchase from their site that uses the code SFORK19. Visit smithy-ironware.com. That's Smithy with an E, SMITHEY, ironware.com to check out the growing line of skillet sizes. And remember, at the checkout, type in the code SFORK19 to get your chainmail scrubber. Now, welcome to the new season where we start by celebrating my beloved Charleston and International Women's Day. Who better for that combo than two women who know more about gin than I do? I first met Johnny Caldwell and Taneka Reaves, known in the biz as the Cocktail Bandits, more than 4 years ago in Charleston at a tequila event, of course. Since then, we've sipped and cheered glasses many times in Charleston and beyond. They came out to cheer me on when I was nominated for Best Food Podcast at the Saveur Blog Awards a couple of years ago. I've watched with awe as they have become a force in the national cocktail scene, soaking up knowledge about spirit history and mixology while making a place for more diversity in the spirits world. Last year, they published a book about the Charleston beverage scene, the first cocktail book produced in this country by African American women. They promote female empowerment through advocacy for the food and beverage community, and it's from a feminine, urban perspective. And they do it through straight hustle to show up and be present, interacting both online and in person. There's a lot more behind their story than swizzle sticks and slices of lemon. Well, welcome to the Southern Fork, you two.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having us, Stephanie.
And hello to James Folio, engineer extraordinaire. So happy to be sitting with all of you today inside the Ohm Radio studio inside the workshop in Charleston, South Carolina. And because it's such a rainy day where high tide is actually flooding the ground, we've decided that we are going to sip a little liquor. It is Cocktail Bandits Day at the Southern Fork. So
it's only right.
We are drinking a sip or two from episode 69's Copper and Kings in Louisville, Kentucky. They have sent me 2 new expressions of gin. One that is finished in Curacao, orange Curacao barrels. And then the other one, Johnny, you've got that bottle in front of you.
It says hibiscus, strawberry, and honey.
And
Rose.
There's a lot of rose in that, don't you think?
Very rosy.
Now, so that we can all know whose voice is connected to who, will you please introduce yourselves?
I'm Johnny Caldwell.
And I am Taneka Reaves. And we are the Cocktail Bandits.
Damn. That was awesome. They've done that a few times. So, loving the Copper and Kings? It's a good thing.
Yes.
Now, you were just telling me right before we got on air that last year, where you do a spirits competition judging every year. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, first of all, thank you for inviting us to the podcast. We are honored to be here. Thanks. And yes, we judge a competition called the American Craft Spirits Competition. It is a national competition where American distillers all send in samples of their products. And then we have a group of judges who are just amazing. We're starstruck every time we go. And we just judge different categories. I judged gin last year, and then this year I judged cordials and specialty spirits.
Wow.
So it's a lot. In 2 days, you're drinking 80 to 90 different spirits in the same category, so your tongue gets tired.
Yes, and also you're not swallowing all of those.
No.
Because you don't want to die.
You can't do it. It's just, it's impossible.
I mean, even for professionals like all of us, right? Actually, I met Johnny and Taneka. I was thinking about this morning. 4 years ago at a tequila event, and they said, "We are the Cocktail Bandits." And I said, "What does that mean?" And they said, "Just watch." And I have watched you blossom into amazing experts on spirits through simple trial and error and tasting and learning and responding and attending. You two have put in the work by attending, traveling, and showing up. What is that at the beginning that really you had to commit? There was a moment when you said, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it. And it was like a shot. It was off. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm sure the moments are different for each of us, but there was definitely a time when, like you said, we would go out to these events and we would kind of say sheepishly, we're the Cocktail Bandits, or we call ourselves the Cocktail Bandits. But there was just a moment where we're like, you know what? We are the Cocktail Bandits. We're going to own it. We're going to say that's who we are.
I just got a little chill right on the back of my neck. Woo! I love that. Woo! Power's in this room.
We had to, because we were going into these rooms with people who didn't look like us, who were asking us, what's your deal? Mm-hmm. What are you trying to do? And we had to leave with confidence. And ever since then, we've just been rocking it out, Cocktail Bandit life all day.
Mm-hmm. All day. So let's talk about that. Let's answer that question. Mm-hmm. What are you trying to do besides educate yourselves and actually make a place for yourselves where there wasn't one?
Mm-hmm. I think that's just it. Our vision has evolved as we've been going to different events and just seeing what's out there already. For me, it's interesting to see how all the beverage ways are connected to history. So just to educate people on what you're drinking and that it has a story to it. So basically being storytellers in the beverage world. Mm-hmm. I know we talk about food a lot and we have Southern food ways, but we really want to have Southern beverage ways as well and be in the forefront of that.
Mm-hmm. And through the journey, your palate has evolved to the point where you get the dream job of judging spirit competitions on the regular and huge ones. Do you feel that responsibility? Besides being awestruck, like you're saying, when you go in that room, you're in that room too. Mm-hmm. People are awestruck with you. So there is a responsibility there because you know the stories of the spirits that you're judging. So
yeah, those moments are really important because usually we are the only black women in those rooms. And also we're usually the only mixologists in the room. There's usually like educators, brewmasters, people who are teaching about the vine, the varieties, but usually they're not on the actual service end of it. So I bring that with me when I go to judge, thinking like, okay, how can this be used in a cocktail? What was the actual intention of the maker besides just having it be sipped on neat? What were they thinking this would be like in a glass? So I think that perspective is always needed. And just with Cocktail Bandits in general, we were not seeing the Black female perspective when it came to food waste or beverage ways. So just to be able to give a little bit of insight onto what Black females are imbibing, what they're enjoying. I mean, we're doing a lot of cooking. There's reasons behind all of that. So just to shed light on some of the motivations behind that.
And actually pairing up like you have with the Lee brothers, with Brock, with BJ Dennis. Hey, BJ.
Hey, BJ.
Hey, Lee brothers.
That's right.
Hey, Brock. I don't know if you're listening, but hey. You have that opportunity to actually get one-on-one connections and make bridges with the cocktails that you're making for those events and pairing them with this food. And then you start to see, oh, all this stuff is interconnected. So let's talk about interconnected. You two, you spend a lot of time together. I mean, there are no weapons out right now. I mean, you just you roll into events together. I see it. You're riding together. When you fly, do you book seats next to each other, or do you go, I need quiet time?
We usually don't sit together when we fly. It's usually just whatever seats we get.
Pretty much. And I don't think we've ever flown together.
Yeah, we don't really fly together. We're always together. So that little bit of time, I know she's a few seats back or a few seats ahead of me, so it's cool.
Quiet time. I get it. So how do you, as you actually are placemaking, I think is that a right term? Like you're placemaking, you're saying, this is my perspective. You're adding to the conversation as African-American female mixologists. What, you like black better?
No, I'm not even talking about that. I just want to go back to that original question about the traveling on the plane.
Oh.
Taneka and I are not a couple.
Yes, we know this.
No, some people don't know that. They think that we're together.
Oh, okay.
I love her dearly. She's my very best friend. She's my sister. She's my life partner, but we do not sleep together.
No.
And whenever we travel, people will like put us in the same room or try to like count us as one person. We're two individual people. We have two different backgrounds. We bring a different perspective to the business. She actually had years of mixology experience before I even got into the industry. So she shared that love with me, and I have expertise that I brought to the relationship too.
Absolutely.
That we able to incorporate to make our business what it is.
Right.
So I hate when people try to make us one entity because we're not. It kind of like cheapens what we're bringing because it's already so few black female voices, and to make our two voices one.
That's a huge, and that leads directly into the next question that I was going to say. So, ask. Is how do you maintain privacy when you are putting so much of yourselves out there, and then also maintain your own voices? Is that something you actively talk about with each other, and do you choose roles? I mean, how do you protect that part of you? Because we're going to talk a minute about Instagram. It's a machine that you kind of plug into. And if you're not consciously going into it, it can sweep you up. There are people that say, I don't ever like hearing when people say, that's what you have to do. Because I don't believe that. I don't think we're all making this up. So how do you take care of yourself and give yourself a space to be that public persona and the private? And then how do you strengthen your individual voices?
That's a great question, and I'm trying to figure that out myself. Last year was a very difficult time for me as far as putting everything out. What did I want to put out? What do people assume? Because people think that your life is so perfect from social media because you only show the highlights. You don't show the lowlights. And it's really difficult to show this fun life, but then also show the reality because people don't want to see the struggles. They don't want to see the work.
Highlight reel versus the real.
Exactly. So it's a tough thing. You have to work on that every day. I'm still working on keeping it divided, keeping it separate, private. I don't really put any personal business on my social media channels. Mostly it's work. But sometimes you want people to know who you are and what you like, your personal interest. So I try to do that on my personal page and do the Cocktail Bandits stuff on the Cocktail Bandits page.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Johnny?
If it wasn't for Cocktail Bandits, I probably wouldn't have 200 followers on Instagram. Like, I would be not as actively involved. It's really a mechanism for our business, and we use it as a portfolio for what we've done. And as you mentioned earlier, we don't even put on everything that we're actually doing on Instagram
because you can't. You're doing it, and you don't have a team.
No.
When you have people that intersect with you, but you're actively doing it, and you want to do it.
Yep.
And we have personal pages, and we kind of share a little bit more on our preferences on that style as far as like music or dance or whatever on our personal pages. But I think there's something to having a little bit of mystique about you and not having all of your personality and your attributes like, oh, I know that is going to do that. Having a little bit of unpredictability is alluring. And I think when we get to a position further in our career, when we have a bigger platform and we're able to really share some of the personal struggles that we got us to this point, I think people will appreciate that more than now.
I agree.
I think that's a really good way to think about that. Yeah. I need direction in that world too. I mean, how do you put yourself into your work without using yourself, mining yourself for the work? How can you allow your work to feed you and not use your work to actually bleed you?
Yeah.
I didn't plan to rhyme that, but it sounds good.
It does sound good.
Well, with Instagram, to me, and I mean, you definitely are on Facebook and you're on other social medias, but Instagram is like the powerhouse of the entity that is the Cocktail Bandits. So how did you wield that power? Not giving away your secrets, but you actually, there's some thought there. And we've talked about this definitely on air over time. Like how did that happen? That Instagram really was something that you thought I could use.
Well, we started looking at people who really weren't in the industry. We looked at natural hair girls who were making businesses for themselves, fitness gurus. And Instagram, when we first started, it was a new platform. So no one was really posting on there. And we knew that if we posted things and used all the hashtags and just posted, people would be interested. Because we tried to find women of color online to mirror, and we couldn't find any. So we decided to be those women.
Love it.
And we found women through that, through posting our drinks, through being in those experiences, who would DM us and was like, wow, I enjoy wine. I enjoy tequila. Where can I go for that event? Can I meet you guys? And it was just a whole movement. So it wasn't the food and bev world that inspired us. It was more other entities, but we love food and bev.
Right. So you wanted to share your love for food and bev to people that weren't being welcomed to the table, frankly. As I like to say.
Including us. We couldn't find work in food and bev when we got into it. Like I said in the beginning, Taneka had years of experience working in different bars and restaurants in the greater Charleston area. But when it came to working downtown, employment it wasn't happening. And I was having that experience as well. After I graduated law school, I couldn't find a job. So we were forced to build our own business, and you don't need permission on Instagram. You don't need approval on Instagram. We had total autonomy over what we were posting, and we just took advantage of that. We reached out to people. We got opportunities with different brands that gave us a chance with products, and we just totally would make 12 different drinks and just showcase all of it and do all of this stuff. And we got the blog going because our base literally said, we want to see more of what you're doing. The Instagram photos are great, but give us some more of the storytelling. And that's
give us a way to use that spirit.
Yeah.
You know it, but we don't. And then you realize, oh, I do know this.
Yeah.
I do. So when you wrote The Holy Spirits, you actually collected stories. And you documented the city, a city that actually said no to you. That's a weird moment.
Yeah.
It was a weird moment, and I'm from Charleston originally. My family has been here since slavery times. Like, we still live on heirs property that was handed down since then. So when I saw the popularity of people like the Sean Brocks, like the Mike Laudas, and we love them, we work with them, but they're not from Charleston. So when they're telling our story and they're not fully a part of the culture, we felt a responsibility to be able to share that story from our perspective and give nods to people who look like us, who contributed to it back then as well.
Right.
We weren't able to really get into our book, but there's more coming.
Right. So you're going to torture yourselves again?
No, not torture.
Okay. I understand. I understand. It gets, okay. I do not have children. I am child-free by choice. But I have heard that when you give birth, there is a moment where you're like, crap, I'm not doing that again. That was a lot. And then after a while, it kind of wears off and you're like, look at that baby, a.k.a. look at that book. Mm-hmm. That's nice. I maybe could do that again.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like having a baby.
Yeah. Well, babies take 9 months. That book took us almost 2 years to write.
Mm-hmm. Well, not all, because each book is a different process.
Yeah.
And so that book is a trial by fire, because you are doing a couple of things and I want to say kudos. You are actually doing recipes, which you have to test. Mm-hmm. You're actually collecting stories. You are art directing. Mm-hmm. You are deciding, which normally that is not your job. Mm-hmm. But you took it on because you're like, guess what? If nobody else is doing it, we're going to learn this. So awesome. Mm-hmm. And then also you are team writing, which I don't do because I'm not often a good team player. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot to take on. So 2 years, good for you. Mm-hmm. It could have taken a lot longer.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. But it's not like I'm going to do this. It's more like, what? This is my job. Mm-hmm. So you just returned back from New Orleans, mm-hmm. and Resistance served. Mm-hmm. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that experience and how that is going to deepen your work moving forward as it continues to evolve. But that's a really big subject, so I'm going to walk you through that. So first, what is Resistance Serve, or what was Resistance Serve, besides being awesome on Instagram? And I was like, liking everything.
Resistance Serve was a symposium that was geared to talking about the nuances and the contributions of African Americans in the hospitality and beverage world. All the panels were all people of color, and they were all talking about their stories and their contributions and the work that we need to continue doing in our community. So it changed my life to see all of these people. There was not a spectator in the room. Everybody was somebody. And not just the Black people, but the white people and the other people of color who were brave enough to come out and tackle these issues with us. I was very moved by the whole symposium. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely moved by the symposium. It was probably the most diverse audience as far as like LGBTQ people were present. Mm-hmm. We had people in there who were farmers who had farmed for 35 plus years. So people in their 60s and 70s were in the audience who were actively asking questions about ownership in our community and industry. So it was just an overwhelmingly powerful discussion that needs to happen on a more regular basis. Mm-hmm.
So you were involved in a panel, right? Mm-hmm. So talk to me a little bit about that panel and how you prepared versus kind of what went down. Because, you know, the energy in the room and knowing who you're with and how that conversation can really shift it.
No, again, the organization, Ashton Berry and Cassara Hill are amazing women, and they got a team of people to help organize that function. We actually spoke to our moderator 2 times before our actual panel, so we were comfortable with her, comfortable with the questions. We've never had that kind of preparation before a conference before. So when we got on stage, we weren't like
moving forward. That's the standard. You need to have that, and you demand that moving forward.
Now we will, because
Right.
we've definitely been thrown out there before and have never heard the questions before, and the energy is off. And
Right.
you've been in the panel when it's kind of like, these
Yeah,
people
and then
aren't-
you're like, this is going off the rails. And then you just kind of like, there's a moment where you just kind of like, I'm out.
right.
And you don't mean to, but you're kind of like, I can contribute nothing else.
Yeah.
Or this is done. So yeah, so that did not happen.
That did
so
not
go
happen.
them. Yes.
They did an amazing job with that, and I think they also did a good job breaking up the experience where it was partially sitting down and having an engaging conversation, and then we had the field trip experience that gave you a different cultural activation that wasn't just like eating food and drinking cocktails. It was like, here's history and culture in your face. And we definitely need more of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the plantation trip was really inspiring for me.
What plantation was it?
Whitley. We went to the
Whitley,
Whitley
yes.
plantation. It's the Whitney. Sorry.
Okay.
It's the only plantation that tells the story from the enslaved Africans narrative. So hearing these stories and hearing the history, it makes sense why hospitality is the way it is today. And when people say that it doesn't affect them, it does.
Yeah.
Slavery is American history, period. And for us to overlook that, you're overlooking everything else in our country that makes America, America, period.
Right.
So to know what these enslaved Africans did as far as making beer, making spirits, the food cultures, the hospitality, just being treated well, that comes from slavery. And for us to make that connection, even tips, that comes from slavery. Like, all of these things come from slavery, and we've removed ourselves so much from it that we can't fix these problems that we have today because we're overlooking the things that happened in the
Right.
past.
You can't rise above. The only way out is through.
I agree.
Right. And so lots of times in that space, there's a sense of damage when you come away because you've ingested this knowledge. It's heavy. It's knowledge that's heavy. So you understand why people want to avoid that, because once you take it on, you can't, that's a responsibility.
It is. And I think us living in the American South, especially in Charleston, where plantation tourism is a big thing. Like, you have
there are still people in hoop skirts.
yes, who
I
dress
mean,
up in
seriously.
colonial garb.
And I'm also like, y'all, it's 100 degrees. Don't get near me. We
Yes.
know you're hot. That's all I got to
And
say.
moist. It's a lot.
That word moist.
So to see it, there were people who were in our group from Toronto who had never been to a plantation, even people from Baltimore who had never been to a plantation. So these people of color. So it was definitely something that was shocking to them, but we didn't leave with a somber feeling. There was a moment where Ashton led everyone in just an open expression, like, no one's going to comment, just say how you feel in this moment. And there's never a space like that either. Usually whenever you speak, there's someone that's back to say either they agree with you or they don't agree with you, just what you just said. But this space was just open and free, and people left there wanting to continue the work, not feeling like this is too much, I'm going to leave this where it's at. Everyone was curious. Everyone was talking about different aspects of it, and it wasn't such an oppressive feeling. So I want to see more of that happen in our plantations here in Charleston.
Absolutely.
We're actually working with a couple of plantations
Oh,
to talk
another
about.
chill. Oh, my goodness. I'm serious, y'all. This is a moment.
We are to talk about the story of how enslaved Africans contributed to rum
Yes.
culture in
Yes.
Charleston. How that
Oh,
came up
awesome.
through
I'm
Barbados.
count me in.
And
Whatever
that's-
needs to happen.
And that's the thing, too. It needed to be people like us to tell that story.
Yes.
We had to become something to be able to deliver this story, because I don't think anyone else would be able to deliver it in the way that we are.
Absolutely.
Because we're in beverage culture, we're in hospitality, and we're also women of color.
Absolutely.
In the South. In
Yes.
Charleston.
Yes. And in Charleston, the last point of the Middle Passage. I
Right.
mean,
Yes.
let's talk about that. So this moment of, I feel like the listeners and I feel like people want to ask this question. So I'm going to ask it. Y'all just making drinks. What's this got to do with just drinking tequila?
Well, we drink a lot less now in our business because we have things to do,
Right.
actually.
Yes.
We have to actually work. So we drink a lot less. And for me, this business is an empowerment thing. My family there are a lot of addicts in my family. So to be in this industry and to show balance and to show, hey, you don't have to get drunk all the time.
But wait, what I just asked is condescending.
It is.
So you don't have to answer that question. You're so used to that.
I am.
That you're going into it, and I appreciate that in a moment, because in that situation, if it's food, no one explains the culture. There is a culture behind beverage that is just as deep, just as varied, just as diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's all we were drinking in America when we first got here was alcohol.
Also, that's where the money was. Follow the money, right? Mm-hmm. So, watch and see. Just what you told me 4 years ago. Watch and see.
We didn't know what we were doing 4 years ago, which is so funny.
We're all just trying to figure it out. So, I'm so excited about this next step. I cannot wait to get off the air so I can talk about all the things that we cannot reveal yet. But let us end with some of the questions that I ask for every guest.
Can I get another sampling of this orange?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Let's do this. This orange and curacao barrel gin.
For the questions.
Yes. Would you like
I'm still
the rose?
sipping.
Okay.
Balance. It's all about balance.
So you can choose to answer this each. You can, individually, y'all just work it out. What makes you hungry?
Spice. I love hot everything.
Aromas, like, it's the smell of like baked macaroni and cheese, like smells of home, mom cooking, stuff like that. That's going to be a trigger.
Baked macaroni and cheese. That's already, just saying those words has triggered me. Number 2, how do you think your work says some aspect of your personality? Either how you do your work, what your work is, how it has evolved. What does this say something? I used to use the word identity, but I think our identities are much bigger than our personalities. But usually your work says something about your personality. So what does this say about you?
I'm a very bubbly people person. So I love going out to events, meeting new people, trying new drinks, and just being able to see the change in people from the first cocktail to the end of the night. I love that. I love that transformation. So that's what I enjoy the most about it.
That's an observation for sure.
Everybody's so uptight when they first come into the room, and then you have 3 or 4 cocktails and everybody's best friends, and I love that. Even when I bartended, I love people coming from work stressed, and then they leave, drunk, having a good time, laughing, happy. I enjoy that whole transformation.
But also a good bartender hears people, and you have a one-on-one connection. I know you. I know what you like. I'm going to give it to you. This is a moment of comfort. You tell me how your day was. And here's a friend to talk to when I'm not over here. Right?
Yes. Sorry. She used to come to my bars all the time when she was in law school and just try all of my cocktails. And I'm very thankful that she pushed me to go further, because a lot of the bars I was at wouldn't allow me to be creative.
Oh.
So I'm very thankful for my friend for that as well, just encouraging me, supporting me. She used to come to all my bars and be that friend for guests that would come in. She would talk to them as well. So thanks, friend.
Yes. And I think that's probably what I would say about the business that comes to my identity is the craft part of it. I love craft anything, woodworking, craft cakes, like all that stuff. So to be able to...
Your glasses.
Yes, right.
Right.
We have over
oh my
100
God.
pair.
She's got hundreds of pairs.
we really do. But to be able to use liquids to craft something unique and special for someone's palate, I really enjoy doing that.
It's an alchemy. Yeah, that's a great thing. What keeps you up at night?
All of the work.
Oh, right.
It just makes you think about everything else you need to be doing. Soon, like leaving Resistance Serve, I felt so revved up. And you think about these things in your sleep. You're like, wow, there's so much work to be done. And I know we can't do it all, but what can we add to the equation?
Right. It's almost a surrendering to the work, right? What about for you, Johnny?
What keeps me up at night? There are a lot of things that keep me up at night, actually. I think we have so many things that we're trying to do, and we are, just two people, and we feel an obligation to be able to share so much. So I think the obligations keep me up at night, trying to make sure that
responsibility
is being handled, and people really do look to us for guidance for their own businesses, for their own goals, and just trying to keep being innovative. I mean, that's really what it comes down to being what's next. What are you going to be doing next that's going to be drawing attention and getting those media attentions, because we're trying to grow our brand not just in Charleston but internationally.
Mm-hmm.
We're not limiting ourselves to the American South.
You went to Italy?
Yeah,
we did.
Mm-hmm. That was nice.
It was amazing. It was an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes, the Italian Trade Commission took us to Italy for 7 days, and we were split up. Taneka went to the southern part of Italy, and I was in the northern part of Italy, and that experience was amazing. We're going to be sharing more about that experience on our social media as well, but that also showed you the insight, because these people have been making spirits since the 1500s continually. They didn't have a prohibition period. They didn't have any of that stuff going on.
So that creativity wasn't damned at all. It was just allowed to flow for 400 years.
Straight on through, and to see that history makes me want to delve more into our history on our drinking ways and our beverage ways here, not just when it comes to alcohol, but there's teas, there's coffees, there's all types of different brews.
Arabica soda.
We love him. Shout out to Michael.
Shout out to Michael Mai. Arabica soda. We love your soda.
We love it. I wish we put it in the book. I think it came out. I don't know. It's a regret.
We got another situation coming. We're going to get all those guys in there.
I'm excited. Okay. And then let's end, since it is a food podcast, let's end on last meal. Okay. We all talk about this, drink 3 through 3.5. Everybody's like, what is it? And it changes. So right now, it's like that last one.
The last meal we just had?
No, the last meal that you would have.
Oh, it's my mom's yellow rice. It's like a yellow rice chicken bog that she makes. It's so PD area. And she makes amazing stuffing as well. So my mother's food, that would be my last meal for sure.
Oh, man. I love red meat. So I think I would want like a big, juicy, almost alive steak.
Kind of. I think the word is it just quit mooing.
It just quit mooing. Like cut them right off the slab. That is so rich and full of vitamins. That's what I like. I like when I'm going to dine on something and I feel like I'm having an expensive, like decadent meal, I want a big cut of red meat.
Do you want the potato with it or just more meat?
I'll do a little potato. Nothing wrong with a little potato or, rice. I'm from the South, little Carolina Gold situation happening.
The rice.
Love rice.
Love rice. Love rice. Love chicken bog.
Do you?
But
I'm going to invite you to our event. We're doing a taste of the PD later on this year, and my mom's going to make.
Like, I grew up in Charlotte, so my number one meal for my mom to show love to me was called chicken and rice.
Yeah.
And my family traditionally is from this area. But it was not called chicken bog. It was not. So when I moved here 14 years ago and tried chicken bog, I was like, "Mom, I want chicken rice." Because it's really hard to replicate.
It is.
And there's a lot of this is so simple. Like from a food writer standpoint, this is so simple, but there's like an X factor that might be mom. I don't know what it is.
It's those juices.
But then when you actually move into, so it's just really, really interesting. So anyway, I just got off on a tangent there. But if you listen to the show, you're used to tangents. So if people want to learn more about the Cocktail Bandits, where they're going, where they've been, and especially what they've been tasting, sipping, and mixing, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. We are going to have links to the Cocktail Bandits, also to their Instagram page, which is where you need to get plugged in to keep up with all that fun. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe to this podcast. Tell a friend it's on the treadmill because they look like they're suffering. They need to be thinking about food instead of running. Let them listen to the Southern Fork while they're working out. Let other people know. Also, anytime you subscribe on any of the platforms from Spotify to Pandora, hey Pandora, to Google Podcasts, to Apple Podcasts, and if you like it, leave a review. That allows more people. That really freaks out the algorithm, and that allows more people to find stories just like Johnny's and Taneka's. And that's what we need to do, is find these stories. So thank you, too, for being here today through the rain. Thank you to Copper and Kings. Thank you to James Frolio, who is wearing what kind of hat? A Boone's Bourbon hat today? Mm-hmm. All right. And until next time, ladies, cheers.
Cheers.
Hello, welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full, the first episode of the season, and you are getting that in your download podcast app today during Charleston Wine and Food. Now, Charleston Wine and Food actually sponsors this podcast. Usually every year they have been so supportive of that, but I'm not going to talk about that as much today as I'm going to talk about my presence at the festivals. If you are listening to this show, then you might enjoy a food festival in your area. I work the Southern Food Festival circuit, as I like to call it, and Charleston Wine and Food is my Super Bowl, or food prom, as I like to call it. So today, when you're listening to this show, I am going to be entrenched, moderating panels, podcasting from Marion Square, meeting editors, meeting listeners, but food festivals are a great way to get yourself out of that traditional restaurant environment where the chef might come to your table, if you're lucky, for a couple of minutes. You actually get close-up interaction with some of the best chefs. No matter what festival you're going to, you get to talk to them, ask them why they do what they do. You get to have special dishes. You also get to learn a lot. This weekend, I'm going to learn about bourbon, but of course I know a good bit about bourbon. I can always learn more though, right? I'm also going to learn about Indian food. I'm going to take a wine class or two. I'm going to meet chefs that I haven't met before. I'm going to meet people that probably make some kind of jelly that I have to have in my fridge moving forward. So food festivals are a great way to interact with people that enjoy food as a cultural experience, like you do. If you're listening to this show, I bet you do. They're also a great way to interact with me. So this season, if you are out and about at a food festival and you see somebody who's talking a mile a minute with fake, bright red hair and happens to have a microphone, that's probably me. So just come up and say, "Hey, are you the Southern Fork?" And you will make my day. Thanks a lot, and I will talk to you on the flip side after I have some kale and blueberries and some quiet time after Charleston Wine and Food. You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?